Hi, this is Christian Takushi, Macro Economist, bringing to you a balanced, non-ideological analysis of what is going on in the world of geopolitics, macroeconomics, and financial markets. Today, I want to shed some light on 6 to 7 geopolitical issues that the consensus is underestimating at the moment. And obviously, for good reasons, the world is very busy with the COVID-19 response. Let's go to China. Something's happening in Taiwan and Hong Kong. China is putting a lot of pressure on these two places, these two countries, and or territories, and the West is struggling to deal with it. Western nations are very angry about what's going on there. They've been trying to say something to Beijing, but Beijing has pushed back very aggressively, threatening some of those governments not to do anything, not to say anything. And as we have been expecting, most Western governments became very silent. So great is their dependence on China, unfortunately, already. Very few nations have gone ahead with doing something. We see that in the case of Australia and the United States, but even those two nations had to really scale back what they wanted to do. What the US is doing now is just kind of symbolic. And we've been talking since the year 2010 about this, that the West is becoming too dependent on China. In the year 2016, the West passed that point of no return, where this dependency is almost irreversible, practically irreversible. China can get away with this, absolutely. The West sits in the trap. We've been talking about this for the last 4 years. And I think very few people took it seriously. Only now people are realizing that. I think this is going to get, I don't want to say worse, but from China's perspective, I think it's going to be even more interesting. The West sits in the trap. China can get away with this. The influence of China is only going to grow around the world in the coming years. We see that actually was already in the Middle East, not just in the Asia-Pacific region. Let's go on to the next point. It's about Libya. The world is underestimating what's going on in Libya. Russia and Turkey are advancing a lot in Libya, and the opposition is actually losing this battle. At the moment, only Egypt is putting all this weight behind the opposition to stand up to Turkey and Russia, but I don't think it's going to be successful. Libya is very important, just as it was in World War II. Libya is very important for the fate of the Middle East. Many leaders in the region believe Libya is the last piece of the puzzle that was needed for the next major war in the Middle East. So keep an eye on that. Israel. The next point is Israel. People are talking about a unity government, and I think very few people in the West understand why that is. Israel only goes into a unity government when it expects a war. And that's why we have a unity government in Israel. This is not the only reason, but it's probably the main reason. Israel is expecting a war in the Middle East, either imminently or just being a matter of time. How about the rest of the world? Are we preparing for a war in the Middle East? I don't think so. Well, the West has quite a few other problems to deal with at the moment. Let's go to the next one. It is the EU rescue package of roughly 825 billion US dollars. It's not yet decided. Although the EU is announcing it, we have to wait for the German Constitutional Court in Karlsruhe. It's just a couple of weeks away. Should this court forbid the German Bundesbank to co-finance the ECB purchases of national debt within the EU, then this rescue package will be de facto dead. It will be killed, or at least dwarfed to insignificance. So something very important to watch. Of course, that court is staunchly independent. So Mrs. Merkel has to walk a very fine line to what extent she can influence this this important constitutional court in Germany, this Bundesverfassungsgericht in Karlsruhe. The next one is the United States, the political process there. At the moment, we we see if elections will be taking place next week, that President Trump will probably lose those elections. We still have a couple of months to go, and in that time, a lot can happen. A lot can happen in a couple of months in the United States. And a very interesting thing that we're seeing is that there are some indications that we might be having some systemic event or a geopolitical event, potentially military clash in the second half of this year. Such an event would probably be only positive for the incumbent that is lagging behind. And in this case, it is President Trump. So President Trump could benefit from an additional disruption in the second half of this year, something to watch for. I think it's very interesting what's going on in the United States. We have also been writing recently about our expectation that if nothing else is really changing dramatically in the US is probably on track for having a sort of a civil unrest or potentially even a civil war later in this decade. It is something that is, of course, being long on just a side scenario, still very unlikely, but that unlikely scenario is gaining some momentum and becoming a little bit more likely, a little bit more probable. And I have the impression that it is something that we have to be cautious about, and we have to monitor that in the years to come. Well, finally, I want to finish with NASA and SpaceX launch later this evening in Europe, but it will be afternoon in the United States. The US is going to launch the first manned spacecraft into space for the last 9 years. This would be the first time. Quite symbolic day. I think the current administration would like to mark today, if it is successful, the beginning of the recovery of the United States. This is important for US sentiment, for morale in the country. And secondly, would be also very important for US military that wants to build up its military presence in space. So the Trump administration betting quite strongly today on this. But let's not forget the Falcon rockets of Mr. Musk have had some problems in the past. They have exploded in the past. And there have not been many tests with this. So this is not the same NASA we used to have. This is NASA relying on a private company. Thank you very much for your kind attention.